Hello, everybody, and welcome back to English 10 with me, Miss McFadden. You get to hear my angelic voice rather than seeing my angelic face today because I am going to be talking to you about consistent tenses. Okay, so there are 12 different verb tenses in the English language. We are not going to go over every single one of these. I am just going to have to tell you about how to remain consistent, okay? So there is present tense, there's past tense, and there's future tense, but each of those have subcategories. There is simple, progressive, perfect, and perfect progressive. So in the simple tense, it's just the subject and the verb. So I eat, I ate, I will eat. Progressive is like you are continuously or are continuously doing something. So it's like I am eating, I was eating, or I will be eating. The perfect tense is like what you have done, right? So you always have the have in there. So it's like I have eaten, I had eaten, I will have eaten. And then the perfect progressive is combining those two together. I have been eating, I have had been eating, and I will have been eating. Okay? So get this. If you are writing a paper, a book, a poem, anything, you have to stick with just one tense. You can't switch around from, present tense to past tense from one sentence to the next because it sounds a little funky. So, for example, if I were to say, I went to the store and I eat a pear, you don't sound like you have a good grasp on the English language. You need to say, I went to the store and I ate a pear. Or you could say, I go to the store and I eat a pear. Okay, you could say that too. Another example would be, if I had gone to the play, I will have been home by now. That doesn't make sense because this is past tense over here, and then this is future tense. You can't combine those two. But you could say, if I had gone to the play, I would have been home by now. Okay, you could say that. Even in separate sentences, you still have to stick with a single tense. You can't switch back and forth. Because if I were to say, the night was cold and dark, Jeremy will peer out of his window and wishes for the night to end. That is super confusing. You have no idea what is happening. If I were to say, the night was cold and dark, Jeremy peered out of his window and wished for the night to end, that totally makes sense. That's all past tense. Or if I were to say, the night is cold and dark, Jeremy peers out of his window and wishes for the night to end. All present tense makes sense. And if you want to be a little weird, you can say, the night had been cold and dark, Jeremy had peered out of his window and had wished for the night to end. You could do that too, okay? Keep in mind that all of your writing assignments for the rest of time have to be consistent. You cannot switch back and forth between present and past tense in a single paper. It just doesn't make sense to do that, okay? So in our project that I will be presenting to you next week, you need to make sure that you remain consistent in all of your tenses, no matter what, okay? So try this. I'll give you about like 30 seconds. It's not very hard. So correct the sentence if it's not correct. Ready, go. You good? Check this out. Levi was working on his computer while I went to the store. Both of those are past tense, which means it's correct. For the second one, Maya barks at a tree while Bailey slept on the couch. It doesn't work. Those are two different tenses, right? Maya barked at a tree while Bailey slept on the couch. Okay, there's this new thing that I want to talk to you about, which I'm sure you've probably heard about before, just maybe not in English class, maybe in math class, but definitely not in English class. This thing that's called parallelism means that you're going to keep everything consistent. When you are listing, you must stick with the same part of speech. When two or more words, phrases, or clauses are joined in a list, those elements must be parallel in structure. They must be the same. Let me give you a few examples, okay? So with verbs, this is what verbs look like. For joined verb phrases, each phrase must contain its own helping or modal verb, which, by the way, if you don't remember what helping or modal verbs are, go ahead and pause and check this out if you don't remember what it was. So pause here if you don't know what a helping verb is, and pause here if you don't know what a modal verb is. Okay? Parallelism with verbs. For joined verb phrases, each phrase must contain its own helping or modal verb, or the initial helping or modal verb must apply to all of the phrases. Let's look at this example. The wrong way to say this is, Sarah will order the flowers, pick up the decorations, and might help us set up. The second element is missing a modal verb, and in this case, it could be will, right? So Sarah will order the flowers, will pick up the decorations, and might help us set up, okay? So that's how the correct would be there, okay? All three elements, so all three underlined parts, have a modal verb, the will or the might, okay? Now, let's say that she's definitely going to help you set up, so you can get rid of the word might. So now all of them could say, Sarah will order the flowers, will pick up the decorations, and will help us set up. You know, it kind of gets a little redundant saying will over and over and over again. Now, that's correct. You can say that. You can say will order the flowers, will pick up the decorations, will help us set up. But since it applies to all three elements, you don't have to keep repeating the word will. So you can say, Sarah will order flowers, pick up the decorations, and help us set up. That works. That's fine. Now, parallelism isn't just restricted to verbs. It also works with nouns. So the wrong way to say it could be Leonardo da Vinci was a sculptor, scientist, and competed against Michelangelo. These two are nouns, which is perfect. That's fine, right? He was a sculptor, a scientist. Good. But competed against Michelangelo, that's a verb phrase, and you can't have that in your list, okay? That's not parallel. So, in the correct version, you could say Leonardo da Vinci was a sculptor, scientist, and competitor, right? Because all three elements are nouns in this case. You could also put the article a right here, so you could say Leonardo da Vinci was a sculptor, a scientist, and a competitor. That's fine too. That works, okay? Moving on. This is the last one. So parallelism can also work with adjectives. So the wrong way to say something would be the community center is red and cannot be bought. That second element is a verb phrase, not an adjective, okay? They both have to be adjectives. So let's go ahead and change this verb phrase into an adjective, priceless. The community center is red and priceless. Both of those elements are adjectives, okay? Doing good so far? Let's give it a try. So I'll go over this one with you, and then I'll give you guys the rest of them to do on your own, okay? So which sentence or sentences have correct parallel structure? So during our trip to Washington, D.C., we will visit the White House, tour the U.S. Capitol, and maybe even meet with our representative in Congress. Or during our trip to Washington, D.C., we'll visit the White House, we'll tour the U.S. Capitol, and maybe even meet with our representative in Congress. It is going to be the first one. Each of the phrases start with the same part of speech, verbs, right? So we will visit, we will tour, we will maybe even meet with our representative, okay? So all of those work just fine. It doesn't work in this one because we have the we'll visit the White House, we'll tour the U.S. Capitol, and then that will isn't there, okay? You can't have that. It has to be consistent. If you're going to have the will, the W-E''L-L, will, you will have to put that at the front of this one as well, okay? See what I'm saying? Let's try this one. Which sentence or sentences have correct parallel structure? Getting from my English class to my science lab requires me to go down the stairs, across the quad, into the science building, and down the corridor to the lab, all in 3 minutes. Or, getting from my English class to my science lab requires me to go down the stairs, run across the quad, into the science building, down the corridor to the lab, all in 3 minutes. Which one of these has correct parallel structure? If you guessed the first one, you are correct. So each of these phrases begins with a preposition. Down, across, into, down, right? All of those are prepositions. That works. With this one, it says down, run across, into, down. That is not a preposition right here. This is the odd one out. Because it's the odd one out, this is not parallel structure. Okay? Let's try another one. Jackie Robinson was not only the first African American Major League Baseball player, but also an important civil rights advocate. Or, Jackie Robinson was not only the first African American Major League Baseball player, but also advocated for civil rights. If you guessed the first one, you are correct. The first African American Major League Baseball player and an important civil rights advocate are both noun phrases, okay? The second one, the first African American Major League Baseball player and advocated for civil rights, are not parallel because the first one is a noun phrase and the second one is a verb phrase. It is not parallel, okay? They have to be identical. Try this one. Those who climb Mount Everest face frigid winter, high winds, and altitude sickness. Or, those who climb Mount Everest face extreme weather, winds, and altitude. If you guessed both of them, you are correct. Both of those are correct in their own sense. They are all nouns, right? So for this first one, noun, noun, noun. Okay, really noun phrases, noun phrase, noun phrase, noun phrase. For this one, noun, noun, noun. Okay, now if it was noun, noun, verb, then it wouldn't be parallel. But in this case, it's noun, noun, noun. Okay? Okay, so on IXL, there is a starred assignment waiting for you. It is titled Identify Sentences with Parallel Structure. You need to get to 70 for your minimum score to get your points, or you can get to 100 for an extra credit point. Make sure that you take a screenshot of your score and attach it to Google Classroom. If you have any questions about parallel structure, go ahead and either give me a call or shoot me an email, and I will respond to you as soon as I can. Okay? Other than that, guys, have a great Thursday, and I will see you on Tuesday.